Excuse me.
In 1994, two bowl cuts, one shaggy dog van, and a suitcase full of cash turned into comedy gold. Dumb and Dumber wasn't just a goofy road trip movie, it became one of the most iconic comedies of the 90s. But behind the slapstick, tooth chips, and snowball fights, the making of the film was just as ridiculous as what ended up on screen. From wild casting choices to behind-the-scenes disasters, the story of Dumb and Dumber is packed with strange twists. So let's buckle up in the Mutt Cuts van and explore 20 weird facts you probably never knew.
Hey, Auntie.
Number 1, Jim Carrey's tooth was really chipped. Most actors use prosthetics or fake props for quirks like chipped teeth. Not Jim Carrey. His front tooth had already been chipped in real life from a childhood accident, and when he landed the role of Lloyd Christmas, he asked his dentist to actually remove the cap. This gave Lloyd his instantly recognizable crooked smile. Carrey felt it fit the character's offbeat, clueless personality perfectly. The chipped tooth wasn't just a gag, it became one of the most memorable parts of his appearance. Imagine anyone else smiling that dumb grin without it, it just wouldn't hit the same way.
Oh, big gulps, huh? All right.
Number 2, Jim Carrey made almost nothing. At first, by the time Dumb and Dumber was being cast, Jim Carrey wasn't a superstar yet. He had just finished Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, but it hadn't been released. The studio originally offered him only $350,000 to star as Lloyd. But once Ace Ventura became a surprise hit, Carrey's asking price skyrocketed. His agents renegotiated, and Carrey eventually took home $7 million, a huge leap from the original deal. Ironically, his paycheck ended up being almost half the movie's total budget. Carrey went from struggling comic to Hollywood's hottest property practically overnight, and Dumb and Dumber cemented him as a box office juggernaut.
What more could two single guys ask for? How about some food?
Number 3, Nicolas Cage and Gary Oldman were almost the leads. It's nearly impossible to imagine anyone other than Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels playing Lloyd and Harry. But believe it or not, the Farrelly brothers originally wanted Nicolas Cage and Gary Oldman. Cage was known for his eccentric performances, and Oldman had serious acting chops. Both actors considered the roles but passed. Imagine the movie with Cage's manic energy as Lloyd and Oldman's brooding style as Harry. It would have been a very different film. Thankfully, Carrey and Daniels were cast, and their chemistry made the movie unforgettable. Sometimes the weirdest what-ifs end up being blessings in disguise. Number 4, Jeff Daniels wasn't supposed to get the role. Jeff Daniels was respected as a dramatic actor before Dumb and Dumber, known for roles in films like Terms of Endearment. The studio was nervous about casting him as Harry because they didn't believe audiences would buy him as a goofball. They wanted a safer comedic actor. But Jim Carrey pushed hard for Daniels, believing their contrasting styles would create magic. He was right. Daniels threw himself into the absurdity, playing Harry with the same seriousness he'd bring to Shakespeare. His deadpan delivery balanced Carrey's wild antics, creating one of comedy's most iconic duos. Number 5, the Mutt Cuts van was a real nightmare. To drive the Mutt Cuts van, shaped like a giant shaggy dog, is one of the movie's most ridiculous props. But behind the scenes, it was a nightmare. Covered in thick carpeting, the van trapped heat and smelled terrible after hours on set. Driving it was equally difficult. Visibility was poor, and the added weight made it clunky on the road. Jeff Daniels later admitted that spending hours inside the dog van was one of the least glamorous parts of filming. Still, it became an icon of the movie. Fans loved it so much that Universal even used replicas for promotional tours. Number 6, the Aspen scenes weren't filmed in Aspen. In the film, Harry and Lloyd drive across the country to Aspen, Colorado. But when the cameras rolled, Aspen wasn't actually Aspen. Most of those snowy scenes were shot in Park City, Utah, with some exteriors in Breckenridge and Copper Mountain, Colorado. The filmmakers wanted a glamorous ski town look, but also needed locations that fit their budget. Ironically, Jim Carrey owned a home in Aspen at the time, but the production never filmed there. The movie may have been lying about geography, but but the chilly visuals still convinced audiences the boys had made it to Colorado.
That's as good as money, sir. Those are IOUs.
Number 7, the most expensive joke. Was cut Jim Carrey improvised endlessly on set, but not every gag made it into the movie. One particularly wild bit involved Harry and Lloyd buying a giant case of candy bars and eating until they got sick. The elaborate scene cost a lot of money to set up, prop food, set decorations, and filming time, but it didn't survive the editing room. The Farrelly brothers admitted that it just didn't land as hard as other jokes. Ironically, some of the cheapest scenes, like Carrey sticking his tongue on a frozen pole, became the funniest. Proof that comedy gold isn't always about budget. Number 8, the famous bathroom scene was inspired by real life. One of the movie's most infamous moments is when Harry suffers explosive diarrhea after drinking a laxative-laced drink. As outrageous as it seemed, the Farrelly brothers admitted it was inspired by real-life embarrassment. They had heard stories from friends about disastrous bathroom moments, and they decided to exaggerate it for comedy. Jeff Daniels, who was used to playing serious roles, threw himself into the scene with fearless commitment. His over-the-top performance turned it into one of the most talked-about moments of the 90s comedy. Shock humor wasn't new, but this scene took bathroom jokes to another level.
Enjoy your meal, guys.
Number 9, Jim Carrey's tongue really stuck to the pole. When Lloyd sticks his tongue to a frozen ski lift pole, it looks painfully real. That's because it kind of was. Instead of CGI or camera tricks, the crew rigged a hidden suction device inside the pole. When Carrey touched his tongue to it, the suction made it appear stuck. The effect was so convincing that Carrey had a tough time pulling away. His exaggerated expressions weren't just acting, they were part real discomfort. The scene became one of the movie's most memorable gags, proving that practical effects can often beat fancy special effects in comedy.
Harry?
Number 10, the filmmakers snuck in a Stephen King connection. The Farrelly brothers are big Stephen King fans, and they managed to slip in a subtle nod. The diner scene where Seabass, played by Cam Neely, spits in Harry's burger was filmed at a location also used in the adaptation of King's The Stand. The crossover wasn't intentional at first, but when the Farrellys realized it, they leaned into the idea of making hidden references. It was their way of winking at movie buffs. For a comedy as silly as Dumb and Dumber, it's funny to think it shares DNA with one of horror's most serious epics.
That's what we're gonna call it. I got worms.
Number 11, The Suitcase of Cash, had a real-life backstory. The briefcase full of ransom money was one of the movie's biggest running gags. But behind the scenes, the prop department decided to make it look extra authentic by filling it with real newspaper stacks, wrapped in genuine-looking currency covers. For scenes where bills were handled, the crew even used actual cash. This made the actors more careful when filming, since no one wanted to lose money between takes. Ironically, Harry and Lloyd's idiotic handling of the money, using it for IOUs, felt even funnier when you realize the prop had real value on set.
Want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
Number 12. Seabass was played by a real hockey player. Cam Neely, who plays the aggressive truck stop bully Seabass, wasn't an actor by trade. He was actually a professional NHL player. At the time, Neely was a star for the Boston Bruins, and the Farrelly brothers, being massive hockey fans, thought it would be hilarious to cast him. Neely had the perfect intimidating look, and he ended up stealing every scene he was in. Fans loved his performance so much that he returned for the sequel, Dumb and Dumber 2. Seabass remains one of the most unexpectedly iconic characters in the franchise.
Hey! Lloyd!
Number 13. The snowball fight was completely improvised. The infamous snowball fight between Lloyd and Mary starts sweet and then turns violent as Carrey pelts her in the face with ice-packed snowballs. What makes it hilarious is that it wasn't in the script. Jim Carrey improvised the escalation, and Lauren Holly, Mary, reacted with genuine shock. Her laughter and screams were authentic, making the scene funnier than if it had been staged. The crew loved it so much that they kept it in the final cut. It's a perfect example of how Carey's unpredictable style often turned simple gags into unforgettable comedy moments. Number 14, the movie was almost rated. Today, Dumb and Dumber feels like a classic PG-13 comedy, but it came dangerously close to being rated R. The Farrelly brothers originally included raunchier jokes, including more explicit language, and a few gross-out moments that didn't make the final cut. The studio realized an R rating would kill its box office potential, so they trimmed down the edgier material. The end result was a film that still pushed the limits of PG-13 without going too far. Ironically, the slightly cleaner version made it more accessible, helping it rake in huge profits from a wide audience. Number 15. The film had a secret connection to the shining one of the funniest Easter eggs in Dumb and Dumber happens when Lloyd daydreams about living with Mary in a mansion. Look closely, and you'll notice it's the same hotel used in The Shining. The Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, doubled as the creepy Overlook Hotel in Stanley Kubrick's horror masterpiece. The idea of Goofy Lloyd Christmas living in the same place where Jack Nicholson went insane is a hilarious contrast. It was the Farrelly brothers' little inside joke, blending one of cinema's scariest settings with one of its dumbest characters.
Mockingbird, don't everybody have you heard?
Number 16, Jeff Daniels risked his career for the role. Taking on Harry Dunn wasn't an easy decision for Jeff Daniels. At the time, his agents warned him that doing a broad slapstick comedy could ruin his reputation as a serious actor. They thought audiences wouldn't take him seriously again. But Daniels trusted Jim Carrey's comedic genius and believed the script had potential. His gamble paid off big time. Not only was the movie a box office smash, but it proved Daniels had comedic chops. Years later, he would earn critical acclaim again with dramas like The Newsroom. In hindsight, Dumb and Dumber only expanded his versatility. Number 17. The Worm Farm was a running joke on set. Harry and Lloyd dream of making money from their worm farm. I got worms. It was just a silly throwaway line in the film, but on set, the crew found it so funny they kept making jokes about it between takes. They even decorated parts of the set with fake worm business props. Jeff Daniels later joked that if Hollywood hadn't worked out, maybe he and Jim Carrey could have opened a real worm farm. The line became a fan favorite, showing how even the dumbest background details can become comedy gold when delivered with complete sincerity.
Pretty woman, the kind I like to meet.
Number 18. The movie almost had a very different ending. Originally, the script ended with Harry and Lloyd boarding the bus with the bikini models instead of walking away clueless. Test audiences hated it. They thought it ruined the character's charm. The Farrelly brothers realized the comedy worked best when the duo stayed dumb until the very end. So they reshot the ending, keeping the boys oblivious to the golden opportunity. It turned out to be the perfect choice. The nice guys finishing last joke fit the characters perfectly and became one of the most quotable comedy endings of the 90s. Number 19, the sequel took 20 years to happen. After the success of Dumb and Dumber, the studio immediately wanted a sequel, but Jim Carrey wasn't interested in doing a follow-up right away, fearing it would feel forced. Instead, fans got a prequel, Dumb and Dumberer. When Harry Met Lloyd, 2003, which flopped without the original stars. It wasn't until 2014 that Carrey and Daniels reunited for Dumb and Dumber 2. The 20-year gap made the sequel one of the longest waits in comedy history. While it didn't reach the same heights as the original, fans still love seeing Harry and Lloyd back together.
That works good.
Number 20, Dumb and Dumber, turned the Farrelly brothers into stars before Dumb and Dumber. Peter and Bobby Farrelly were unknown filmmakers struggling to get their scripts made. Studios didn't trust them, and Dumb and Dumber almost didn't get off the ground. But once it hit theaters, everything changed. The film grossed over $247 million worldwide, launching the Farrellys into Hollywood fame. They went on to create other comedy classics like There's Something About Mary and Kingpin. Without Harry and Lloyd's idiotic adventure, the Farrelly brothers might never have become household names in comedy. Dumb and Dumber might look like the simplest, silliest movie on the surface. But behind the slapstick was a story full of wild casting choices, risky performances, and hidden Easter eggs. It turned a chipped tooth, a dog van, and two clueless buddies into comedy legends. Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels proved that sometimes playing dumb is the smartest career move you can make. And even decades later, the film still makes audiences laugh like it's 1994.